Hello Flame community, this is Jeff Kyle with the Flame Learning Channel. Previous versions of Flame had support for STMaps through the use of Matchbox shaders. But now, in the context of the new lens distortion workflows, Flame 2025 introduces a brand new STMap node that makes working with distortion maps easier than ever before. In this video, we'll be going over the STMap node's various inputs, controls, and outputs, and how to use it in a number of different scenarios. To start, I'll pull out the STMap node and we'll see that there are 4 inputs. The first is the front, which will connect to the media to be undistorted or distorted. The second is the STMap input, which gets connected to an STMap. The third is a constraint input, which will constrain the distortion to the white part of the input. It's similar to what a matte does for a composite, but in this case, the constraint does not respect softness and treats any softness as if it's completely white. And finally, the fourth input is the matte input, but it's a special kind of matte input that's used to apply the same distortion to a matte clip that is then passed through with a distortion or undistortion applied. As to the controls, starting on the left side, we have a few framing options. Use entire front frame samples pixels from the front clip, starting with the first pixel at the bottom left to the last pixel at the top right, and this mode is typically used for standard STMaps with values between 0 and 1. The next option, use STMap to front ratio, is typically used in scenarios where the STMaps have negative values or values that go beyond 1. This framing mode scales the front clip by dividing the STMap clip resolution by the front clip resolution, and then uses that scale ratio to pad or zoom the result. And finally, use data and display windows is for when the STMap OpenEXR clip contains data and display window information that you'll need to use, but we'll go into some more detail about this in just a bit. Continuing on, repeat mode is what we might remember seeing from the lens distortion node, the 2D transform node, or various maps inside of Action, and it allows us to control what happens at the edge of the frame. Whether we'll see black with repeat off, repeat the last pixel, tile repeat the image, or mirror repeat the image. The filter section gives us the same new filtering modes as the lens distortion node, whereby the default is set to the Mitchell-Netravelli mode, and the other new mode is Catmull-Rom. But we can set this to our filtering mode of choice based on our personal preferences and the needs of the image. As to the outputs, there's the result view displaying the distorted or undistorted image, and the matte view, which passes through the distorted or undistorted matte. There are a number of different pathways that other applications can take when generating STMaps. Different applications might handle it differently, and there are a number of different settings to control how STMaps are output even within the same application. But with all of this in mind, that's where the different framing modes come into play. These framing modes give us the ability to work with whichever workflow is used in whichever application generated these STMaps. To illustrate this, we'll take a look at 3 different scenarios that demonstrate each framing mode. For our first example here, let's note that the Undistort STMap is a little larger than the source footage, and the Redistort STMap is the same resolution as my source footage. I'll pull the STMap node out and connect the front to my source footage and the STMap input to the Undistort STMap. In this case, the default settings are the way to go, with the framing option Use Entire Front Frame selected. I'll duplicate the STMap with keyboard shortcut Ctrl-D, and then connect the front input to the result of the first STMap, and the STMap input to the redistorted STMap. Same as before, we can leave the settings on Use Entire Front Frame, and looking at the result, it's looking good to me. When I click between the source footage and the second STMap to double check, we can see from the result view on the right that it's a match and we are good to go. In our second example here, we can note that this Undistort STMap is a bit different than the first example. The resolution is quite a bit larger than the source footage, and it seems to have been created differently. Once again, I'll follow the same steps as before. STMap node connected to my source footage and the Undistort STMap. Use Entire Front Frame is still good to go for this first part here. I'll duplicate the STMap node, connect it to the first STMap node, and then to the Redistort STMap. And right away, looking at the result, we can see that Use Entire Front Frame is not working. If I look down over here, I can see that the resolution is correct, but it's the framing that's not quite right. That's where the Use STMap to Front ratio comes in, and when I set the framing to that, it looks a lot better. And when I compare it to my source, I can see it's a match. I have just one other scenario here, and this is where the data and display windows come into play. I have my STMaps, and I'm noticing that each of their resolutions match the source plate's resolutions, which might be a problem, so we're going to dig a little deeper. Their file names are a clue, and it's making me want to take a peek at their metadata. I'll click on them, head over to the Extended tab, and then the Metadata section right here. If I twirl down a few of these, I can find the data and display window information right here, and I can see that the data window is a little different from the display window, and that the data window is larger than the resolution of the STMap. In this case, these clips were brought into Flame with the display window, but for Flame to access the pixel data in the data window, we need to change the import settings for these clips to include that data window. I'll head over to the Timeline tab, jump into the Preprocessing area here, switch to the Format tab, and finally the Image tab, and switch the pixel space window from display window to data window. Heading back to Batch, now when I double check the resolution, I can see that it's been expanded to account for the information in the data window. For the second STMap, I'll just quickly re-import it into my scene, making sure it's set to data window when I do so. And now both of our STMaps have the larger data window resolution, and we're ready to work. I'll pull out an STMap node one last time, and once again connect the front to the source clip and the STMap input to the Undistort STMap. Looking at the result, it's looking normal enough for now, so let's duplicate the STMap node and connect the front to the result of my first STMap node and the STMap input to the Redistort STMap. Since the framing mode is still set to use entire front frame, I can see we're doubling up our distortion here. In the other two examples, the resolution of the Redistort STMap was the same resolution as our source clip. But in this case, I can see that we're using a larger resolution, and I know that inside the EXR, there is display window metadata that we can use. To use that metadata, with the STMap node selected, I can T-click the Redistort STMap to send the data and display window data from the Redistort STMap to my STMap node. I can use the Paste Special feature to copy the data and display window data from the Redistort STMap and then paste it into my STMap node here. But since I have the data I want already connected to the STMap input, the easiest and most convenient way to do this is to choose the Use Data and Display Windows dropdown under Framing, and when I do, we can see that beneath that dropdown is a new dropdown indicating that Flame is taking the data we need straight from the connected STMap clip. If I look into the Grayed Out Data and Display Window fields, I can see that this data has been loaded in. When I check the result view, it's looking good to me. And finally, when I double check the result against the source footage, I can see once again that this is a match. If you like these videos and you're finding them helpful, please subscribe to the Flame Learning channel and click the bell to stay notified about new content. Feel free to comment any questions or suggestions below. Until next time, thanks a bunch for watching.